Coming up on Transformers University, we're going to talk about the online fandom and merchandise in 1987, right now on Transformers University. Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode 122 of Transformers University. I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO, the website, tour archive, this podcast, TFU News and Views podcast, Seven Figures podcast, and oh so much more. I want to welcome you to episode 122, where we will be talking 1987's online fandom and merchandise. And we've done this in the previous years for 84, 85, and 86. And we're going to jump into 87. Now, I say online fandom with a grain of salt, because one, the internet in the 80s certainly is not what it is today, nor what it was even in the 90s. But with the way things have been archived since this last show, old Usenet posts are very, very hard to search at this point. Google Groups, really the only web-based way of searching old internet posts, because Google bought out Deja News back in the late 90s, early 2000s, which was like the only web-based Usenet around, and probably the best archive of Usenet. And there are other archives out there now, but they're not as easily searchable as Google Groups used to be. For whatever reason, Google has let the maintenance on Google Groups Advanced Search lapse, and it doesn't work properly. So searching posts from 1987, even if you can find the advanced search page, which sometimes isn't where it used to be, just doesn't work. So with that in mind, I hate to say it, and given how non-prolific the Transformers were in 87, or the internet was in 87, the combination of the two has led me to not find anything for online fandom in 1987. So we're going to skip straight to merch. Now, for merch, this was also hard to search. So I want to give a shout out to a few people as we go along here, because there are some great resources on Twitter and on Facebook. But the one thing I did find, just kind of playing around with TF Wiki, was Ultra Magnus ice cream bars from a company called Peters in Australia. And it turns out the commercial for this is online. Give a listen.
The Transformers, more than
now, the most mysterious Transformer ever, Peter's Ultra Magnus. At first, it's a delicious chocolate ice treat. Then, a chewy bubblegum stick or a caramel toffee stick. Bubblegum or caramel. Every Peter's Ultra Magnus is a new Transformers adventure, because you never know what it will become.
more than meets the eye.
Now, that clip is interesting in so many ways, because they're essentially trying to sell transforming ice cream. But the neat thing is the animation at the top of that ad, and I'll screen cap it and put it up on the Twitter feed, is Sideswipe, Jazz, and Prowl, who are all pre-movie characters, transforming and then jumping up, and then Optimus swooping by in robot mode. Also, that Prowl and Optimus are dead at this point in the continuity is another thing. But also that Prime is colored a little weird. There's a lot more blues where you don't expect them. But Jazz is yellow. At first I thought it was Sunstreaker, and then I looked at it and ran it back, and the vehicle mode clearly has the stripe down the front, and the animation model is most certainly Jazz. So if you want to know what Jazz looked like in yellow, and how do we get that made as a toy, because that would be pretty cool. Now, the strange thing is I didn't find a lot of merch for the United States, at least not anything that was terribly interesting. I did find some stuff from various places overseas. There's a great Twitter feed you should check out, and he hasn't updated it in several months, but goes by the handle Prime_Kiwi, Kiwi, and he's posted all sorts of cool stuff from a 1987 tracing set to walkie-talkie robots from Argentina. And in Japan, they had a 6-shot bop bag. Now, if you don't know what a bop bag is a inflatable, kind of like a beach ball, but with a weight at the bottom, so that when you punch it, it pops back up. And it's kind of like a good punching bag. So if you want to take on the Destron Ninja Consultant, that's one way to do it. There was also a Headmaster's board game in Japan in 1987, and a Chrome Dome and Weird Wolf storage tin, which is like kind of like one of those big popcorn tins. And on one side had Chrome Dome, and the other side had Weird Wolf. In the UK, there was some press out storybooks. Also interesting stuff you can find on @prime_kiwis account. And then finally, in Japan, there were giant inflatable six shots and chrome domes as part of store merchandising. And I found that via the Space Bridge website over on Facebook. And so nothing terribly, that's like the weird stuff. There's not a lot of terribly available stuff. Most of the stuff in 1987 was basically box art printed onto your usual things, lunch boxes and pencil cases and those sorts of things. I'm assuming those existed, but that's the theme, I would say, existed in 1987. So not a lot by way of merchandising, and that explains one thing about the brand, that it was on the decline. It was finding its way out the door, and when things do that, when properties do that in the 80s, there's certainly less and less merch. There's certainly less and less ways to make sure they're in the consciousness of people. Things in the 80s went away, which is very different than what we see now with the internet and just with the way IP is monetized. So there you have it. That will wrap up this edition of Transformers University. I know, a short one, but it's okay. I'll tell you what's coming up right after this.
Thanks for listening to the show. Stick around to hear what's coming up next episode, but first, I want to fill you in on a few ways you can stay in touch with the show. Want to be on the show? Leave us a voicemail at 702-763-4838. That's 702-POD4TFU. Or send an email to info@TFU.info. Be sure to catch us on Twitter @TFU_info and on Facebook and Instagram under the username TFU.INFO, all one word. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TFU.INFO, where we post all of our podcasts, plus special video segments, reviews, and live coverage of Transformers-related events such as New York Toy Fair and New York Comic Con. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit us at www.tfu.info, the world's longest-running transforming toy archive.
Next time on the show, we're not jumping back to cartoons just yet. We're talking about comics, but not Marvel UK. We're going to talk Blackthorn and their 3-issue run of Transformers comics that started in 1987. They're Transformers in 3D. And so we'll check out those comics, those stories. There's lots of interesting stuff in them. And we'll do that next time on Transformers University. But until then, I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.info. Till next time, see you.